Let's turn attention to security now. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Musa, Christopher Musa, has given heads of security operations in the Niger Delta 2 weeks to put an end to the insecurity that has led to a drop in the daily crude oil production. General Musa warned military commanders who aid oil thieves to desist that anyone caught will not be spared. Helen Osamede-Akins reports.
We assist the relevant companies to ensure that they produce and their production increase. What we're targeting towards achieving is at least 2.5 million barrels per day. Nigeria is bleeding, gentlemen. We have a task. Mr. President is not happy. And he said that in clear terms. He is not happy. And since it is our responsibility to do that, he has given us 6 months. For me as Chief of Defense Staff, I'm taking 2 months. For you, commanders here on ground, I'm giving you 2 weeks. It is not going to be business as usual. We all know what the challenges are. If we want it to stop today, it will stop.
This effort will bring back production of oil into much higher level. We will meet the expectation of Mr. President to, in the short term, restore production to at least 2 million barrels per day, and ultimately to scale up with improved security, which will bring back confidence. Investors will put capital into our business. People will come back to start operating their assets, and we'll see gradual increase and return to the normalcy that we expect.
For more on this, I have joining me the Managing Director of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, Dr. Kabiru Adamu. Good to have you join us.
Thank you. Good evening.
So the federal government says it has a target of about 2.5 million barrel per day daily oil production. But as it stands, the last report we had from the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission is that we're only able to produce about 1.5 million barrel per day. And that's largely because of crude oil theft. With all the monies that have been thrown at this problem, why is this still very difficult to deal with this?
There are so many factors. Most of them are environmental and social. But at the center of it is governance. We're at a situation where the people of Niger Delta feel that they are not getting enough in terms of what they feel they deserve from the Nigerian state. And so different elements within that region have decided to get a share, as it were, of the oil national cake. And so different forms of oil theft have emerged. That's one element. The other element is our inability as a country to also have a cap in terms of the international components, the kind of partnerships that we've entered to allow for both the exploration and then, of course, the mining of and the exploration of oil. And then, of course, the fact that our borders remain porous, especially our sea borders, which would allow the, as it were, exportation of stolen oil. So all of this, and then of course we also need to take into consideration the corruption that has made the attempt to stop the oil theft. There have been several presidential directives on this matter. Committees upon committees have been set up to address the matter, but unfortunately, the issue has not yet been addressed at the point we were.
And Dr. Kabiru, because sorry to jump in, but because you mentioned presidential directive, I just remember that his Chief of Defense Staff had talked about harmonized operations coming under the Joint Task Force. Again, back to the presidential directive, there was a contract awarded to I think it was Tantita Security Services. Where does this leave that contract?
Clearly, in my opinion, the biggest indication of the failure of the Nigerian state to protect its assets is that contract. As at today, even as we're speaking, security remains in the exclusive list, and that means it's the prerogative of the federal government. But to now bring in a private player and to somehow allow that private player to be armed is, like I said, a clear indication. I don't have anything wrong with, as you know, I run a security company and I do provide security service. But why this is exceptional is that that private player is allowed to bear arms and then to support a security operation an operation that is being carried out by public security departments in a very peculiar manner. Now, even though I understand the reasons behind it, but like I said, it's a clear indication of the failure of the Nigerian state to protect its asset. If we've decided as a country to go the route of other countries and allow private security players to bear arms, then so be it. The National Assembly should take a look at that law and allow it. But then to have such an exceptional advantage given to one player in circumstances that are quite bizarre, I don't think it speaks well not for the region, not for the sector, and definitely not for the private security sector as well.
And let's talk about this new mandate. The Chief of the Defense Staff has given the Joint Task Forces as well, and security chiefs under him, or heads of security agencies under him, 2 weeks. He talked about 3 months yesterday, and today he mentioned 2 weeks. But how realistic is that, and what will it take?
I think it's commendable hearing that type of messaging coming from the Chief of Defense Staff. We must commend him. And of course, I know it's a committee, and I don't have the full list of the committee, but I'm hoping that all the stakeholders are brought into that committee. What is important more than anything here is the political will, and I think the president has demonstrated that political will. Oil is the oxygen of the Nigerian economy, and right now we're suffering. I mentioned that there was a time when we were producing just 900,000 barrels. If it's increased to 1.2 million now, then it is commendable. We need to go up to quota. The president has given a target of 2.5 million. If we can get that, then I think everybody will be happy and happier for it. Dangote needs oil, and of course, increasing that quantity would allow him to get probably some of that oil and other players. So what I hope to see from that committee is to break down that order into key performance indicators for each member of that committee. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there are various factors that are involved. If you pick the Petroleum Industry Act, it allows so much, but then the level of compliance is at a very low level. So pick up each mandate, each responsibility. If it's intelligence, pick it up, break it down into key performance indicators, and then measure it in clear terms. So again, this is not just about security. It involves governance, and I think this is what I'm hoping to see. And in this instance, I'm calling on the Office of the National Security Advisor to play the role of coordinator and ensure that these key performance indicators that I've mentioned are measured in a manner that will allow Nigerians to look back and say, yes, a presidential directive was given. That directive has been met.
Thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure to have you on. Managing Director of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, Dr. Kabir Adamu.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.